Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. Following up on my theory of how legacy auto brands will still exist, but just possibly not under the existing companies, well, how I see this happening will be with significantly fewer options of car models available. Each legacy auto manufacturer will need to pick up just a few of their best-selling brands, or most renowned in history, that can be used to market to the consumer. The brand may contain some prestige, familiarity, nostalgia, or brand loyalty. Just to be clear, all legacy auto models will have to have Tesla FSD and Tesla charging network access. This is imperative. They're simply too big a competitive advantage for any competitors to circumvent. And I think this has already begun. I have to hand it to Ford. They picked the Mustang and F-150. I think Volkswagen are being remiss on not introducing an electric Beetle or an electric Porsche 911. They recently announced the Porsche Mission R. It looks like it would be ridiculously expensive, and specifications are still far behind a Model S Plaid. Oh, and this is for 2025. In other words, if you spend a ridiculous amount of money, probably well above $500,000, on an electric Porsche sports car, then you will get worse performance than what a Model S Plaid large luxury family sedan has today. Yeah, legacy will never ever beat Tesla on value and performance. Oh, nor range or technology for that matter either. Legacy autos will be able to get their costs down within time, and there may just not be enough Teslas for everyone anyway. So you can buy an inferior legacy brand that still drives itself and has a good supercharger network, but the range, performance and safety will be lacking. It will also cost more, or at least offer less value at the same price. But I think there are enough consumers that still want the luxury of a Mercedes, or the elegance of a Lamborghini, or the class of an Aston Martin. And some of the brands could make it too. But they won't offer many models, and some brands simply won't make the cut. For example, GM can get away with the electric Hummer, but only maybe 10,000 units a year or so. But it might still be profitable. They could do something similar with the Corvette as well, and maybe the Silverado might have a market too. But it is possible the F-150 already took that slot, and there may not be a large enough market for two of them, let alone electric Dodge Ram too. GM also have Cadillac, which is possibly the right brand that can transition to electric, but we're still talking low units. But after that, I'm running short of GM brands that people would be willing to pay a premium for over a Tesla. GM has very little hope in my opinion, and Ford only has a few brands that might survive too. Perhaps they could release an electric Ford Bronco or something maybe. But the mainstream models would just be eaten up by Tesla if they're not offering anything unique. The legacy auto manufacturers all need to come out with their most classic brands and go electric with them. I can't believe Lamborghini just released a new Countach. This is literally their most definitive brand, and they wasted it on ice. That would have been the perfect brand to electrify. I think Ferrari should bring out an electric Testarossa. It would be really cool. I mean, it would still be slower than a Plaid, but it's still going to be very quick. Quicker than an ICE Ferrari. Okay, we're talking very niche here, but BMW and Mercedes could get away with some models as well. I think their brand carries enough prestige to attempt a premium price, at least for some of their models. I mean, I'm talking about just 3 to 5 models that people might be willing to pay extra for, compared to the 30 or so they currently offer. Yes, about 1/10 of about what they all offer now seems about right. Perhaps like Mercedes EQS. They probably do understand luxury better than Tesla, and maybe some people are willing to pay twice as much for it over a higher spec Tesla. Audi tried with their e-tron GT. Seriously, Audi can't get away with that sort of price tag. The car was just based on the Porsche Taycan, hence how they managed to release it so quickly. People will pay a lot of money for a Porsche, but not so much for an Audi badge. Porsche is a brand that could work well within electric, but their range is just dreadful. To spend around $200,000 and only get about 200 miles of range, it's just not practical for a lot of people. Of course, the actual range you really get will be significantly lower in practice. But how many people own Porsches anyway? Not many. It's a small market. I mean, we're just starting to witness just how long it takes to research, develop, design, and put into manufacturing an EV built electric from the ground up. If they want them to succeed, they can't rush them out, especially when they're going to be demanding such a premium price from consumers. I mean, Ford did design the F-150 around all sorts of utility, and they know what their customers will want. They do still have some valuable market research and experience in their intellectual property that can be of benefit. I think the Japanese may be finished though. They went all in on hybrid and are leaving it far too late to move into EVs. Honda are even relying on GM. How ridiculous is that? A Toyota is a great value car, but that's what Tesla will be, especially with a Model 2 and robo-taxis. Toyotas are awful to drive as well, but maybe a company can buy some of their brands off them and start an electric Toyota Supra or Land Cruiser. Toyota should have really started electrifying the Lexus brand, but I think they've left it all too late now. It takes a long time to get battery supply, especially when you haven't even begun plans for a battery plant, which even US legacy orders took the initiative of. I think by the time they get around to their EVs, then the market will be too saturated. In the meantime, maybe they'll continue to sell hybrids, but demand will surely dwindle, and they will eventually lose economies of scale. Of course, Rolls-Royce was an ideal manufacturer to get into EVs early. What's more luxurious than a silent motor with heaps of torque? They're hand-built, in low production quantity, and charge an absolute premium. I just don't understand how these companies miss this. What were they thinking? Jaguar has a chance. Customers seem to like the E-Pace SUV. Jaguar were actually one of the first to market with electric cars. It was even somewhat concerning as an investor how fast they did it. And I thought the others might follow suit, but it wasn't built electric from the ground up and was just added onto the I-Pace. But I think Jaguar would do exceedingly well if they brought out a new electric sports car. And the most obvious brand they could do that under would be the Jaguar E-Type. This was their most iconic car ever. And of course, it actually has E in the name. Basically, when you put it all together, there may be in the region of 30 or so legacy models that might make the cut, in niches that are different from Tesla, with brands that people are willing to pay a premium for. Their range will obviously be lacking compared to Tesla, but within time should approach 300 miles, which is sufficient when the charging network has matured, or even 250 miles of range. There may be a market for some cheaper EVs too, as Tesla are really going to only target the compact market at the lower price point, but perhaps the likes of Hyundai could come in at a low price point to offer cheaper EV crossovers or SUVs, perhaps with just 250 miles of range. And Tesla are not offering an affordable sports car, convertible, or station wagon, so there are definitely some segments available. But I can't think of many other brands that might work, perhaps Sony or Apple, but it takes a long time to scale up battery production, and by that stage, the market might be saturated. But I think at the end of the day, enough people want more choice than just Tesla. I think we're talking about small numbers here, perhaps up to 10 million units a year for legacy autos globally, or maybe I'm being even too generous there. Perhaps it's closer to just 5 million. High-priced vehicles and robo-taxis will mean that aggregate demand for private vehicles drops as a result. The rest will be the Chinese, Tesla and Tesla's robo-taxi network. Oh right, the Chinese. Won't people just buy Chinese EVs over the legacy autos, as they're much better value? Well, I would say governments would use protectionism and mercantilism and place tariffs on Chinese imported EVs, and or offer incentives to domestic EVs. I think this will be done to try and save the existing legacy industry, or what's left of it. But some consumers simply have a budget of $50,000 to $60,000 for a car, or even $200,000. Therefore, they're not interested in a Chinese car for $30,000, just because it's cheap. And likewise, they may want an electric Ferrari over a Model S, or perhaps over even a Roadster. Cheapest doesn't mean everything. Also, I don't think the Chinese can scale anywhere near as fast as Tesla, and Tesla will secure the most market share once it is saturated. But look, I do continually say it would be a boring world if everyone drove Teslas. I was a big car guy, so I genuinely hope I see some of these iconic brands electrified one day, although I do also kind of hope that the companies that run them are not the same today. In other words, I think it's still only fair that legacy autos still go bankrupt first. I think they deserve to, and I don't think it's fair that taxpayers should have to bail them out once again for their own inept business acumen. Whether Tesla also end up supplying the batteries, motors, drivetrain, etc. as well is a different story, but they possibly won't. A Tesla battery is more valuable to Tesla. And don't forget, all these cars will be paying $200 a month on FSD as well. Wow, it sure does feel good to be a Tesla shareholder. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.